Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today, the 28th of November 2013. So in today's news, we only really have two things. First of all, we have Ghostcrawler, and, well, he's leaving, and also the Warcraft movie release date, which has been knocked back a little bit. So first of all, Ghostcrawler, well, yep, he's gone. There is no word on where he headed, but what he had to say was, an opportunity has came my way, and I have made the very tough decision to move on from Blizzard. He does have a more, a longer extended post on the WoW forums in the US, so, yeah, Ghostcrawler's gone. It's probably up to something that's quite big. Perhaps he's moving to a project somewhere which he's very much passionate about, maybe a new franchise, or it's just an IP that he loves. As for what developer he's going to, it could be anyone, honestly. So, yeah, I mean, fair enough, I guess. I think he was overall a net positive on the game, so it's kind of sad to see him go, and especially what he was like for community interaction and keeping in touch with everyone, especially via Twitter and the forums and all that stuff. I thought he was kind of great at spearheading that. And it was good. So he was involved in World of Warcraft from 2008 onwards as the lead systems designer. This pretty much meant that he oversaw about half of the game. And one of the pushes that he made, well, at least what it seems to me is one of the pushes that he made was a kind of large push for class balance. And since then, the classes and specs are definitely more close together than they ever have been. Now, some would say this was at the expense of homogenization, or I suppose it was resulting in homogenization, which is probably to an extent, well no, it is to an extent true, but I think that overall it's worked out so there's a larger, more balanced endgame than there was previously, especially in late Wrath of the Lich King and Mists of Pandaria. I can't really speak to Cataclysm because, well, I was on an 8-month break from the game at the time. I just got really bored of Cataclysm. So previously he was the lead designer for Ensemble Studios, and they were the people who made Age of Empires. So that's kind of impressive, and before that he graduated with a PhD in marine biology, which probably wow, I nearly said explains. No, explains why he is he's a crab in the forums. So the question is, who fills the void? Who is our new Ghostcrawler? Well, I damn well hope someone fills his role, because his Twitter account was a goldmine of stuff for Warcraft Daily. Now, what it looks like so far to me is that Celestian is the guy who's going to be, or the person, I suppose, who's going to be replacing him. And while he isn't the lead of the team, he is one of the technical game designers on the systems team. He's very active on Twitter, and he's answering a lot of the same questions that Ghostcrawler did. So at least for now, he is effectively the new Ghostcrawler. So if you have PvE questions or concerns or anything like that, it's best to go to him. And if you have any PvP stuff, it's best to go to Helinka, who will fill you in for that. Next up, we have the World of Warcraft release date. Not the World of Warcraft release date, the Warcraft movie release date. So this was originally the 18th of December 2015, and this was fine, apart from one slight issue. That was also the day that Star Wars Episode 7 comes out. Now, if you're not aware, Star Wars is quite a thing, and this is the first Star Wars that's not going to be infected with the evil, tainted plague of George Lucas. Don't get me wrong, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are fantastic. It started to go downhill in the Episode 6. You see the Ewoks? There is a very large theory that has a lot of very credible evidence that the Ewoks were only added so that he could make more money off the movie via merchandising, which definitely worked out. Then the prequels are, of course, all terrible. If you want to have, I'd say, about 3 hours of free content that's extremely fun, I highly suggest you check out the Red Letter Media reviews for the first 3 movies. They are absolutely hilarious, and the whole sort of premise of the entire thing is that the guy is actually a complete psychopath murderer that has a bunch of women in his basement, and that he's taped his Star Wars reviews over, he's taped them over the videos of all the torturing and shit, and it's so funny. It's really good. I think eventually they escape or something. I don't know, do they? I actually haven't seen the end of the Revenge of the Sith one. But anyway, that's what I suggest you do if you want to have a great laughing session at the old, the prequels. So yeah, Star Wars Episode 7, giant movie. Do we want Warcraft coming out the day that happens? No, we don't. First of all, everyone's going to be going to see Star Wars, and a lot of the people who enjoy Warcraft are going to see Star Wars anyway. Now, personally, I would go and actually, no, I wouldn't see either of them on release day, because release day is always bunged, and there's always noisy people and stuff like that at the cinema. But yeah, basically the World of Warcraft the Warcraft sales would be completely cannibalized by Star Wars Episode 7. So, yeah, I think overall this is a good business decision. They have pushed it back to March the 11th, 2016, so that is in around 3 months. I think this is good. It means that, I say more people overall will get to see it, and as fans of the franchise, that's what we want. We want more people to be introduced to the Warcraft lore. I think the Duncan Jones will do the lore justice. Definitely everything points to that. In terms of actors, right now I think the people who were billed for it were Colin Farrell, Paula Patton. Colin Farrell, excellent. Paula Patton, don't really care, but I don't really have too much. I don't know if she's any good or not. And then there was this guy who is the lead character from Vikings. Now, you may not have heard of Vikings, and I hadn't either. It's this History Channel, History Channel, that has terrible connotations. This History Channel, series that is apparently actually really good. Looking on Metacritic, it's 70%, and on IMDb, it's an 8.5. And given that the show's only really, it's only had its first season done, usually things get better as time goes on, so, this is a guy that comes from a really solid series. He seems to play, well, yeah, his name is Travis Fimmel. He plays a guy called Ragnar, which, God, it's a pretty badass name, let's be honest. So, yeah, I actually think this is a good move. And also, he kind of, I think to me, he fits Lothar quite well. He seems to be playing a kind of a heroic, action-y guy, but also this series seems to have a bit of grit to it, this Vikings thing. So that's definitely good, and often I think it's nice when an actor comes in who just fits the role really well and isn't necessarily known. Extremely widely known, because that way you're more sold on the character as portrayed by the actor who has been really well directed, as opposed to, say, seeing something and being like, oh, hey, that's Samuel L. Jackson, that's Jamie Foxx, okay, there's Django, but you know what I mean. So I think that could actually work out quite well for the movie. Anyway, let's round the show off by taking a look at 1 or 2 questions from my Q&A list. Unfortunately, I don't have the names of the people who left the questions, so yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, the first one is, in the short term with stats changing on armor, according to what spec you're in, it sounds good, coming from the perspective of being a retribution/protection paladin. However, long term, I see the oversimplification of armor to be a very boring and poor solution to role-specific looting. Also, it will also remove any reason for someone to run LFR that does normal and above. How do you think this will end up? Well, first of all, I think that it's a good move. Personally, I'm completely for it in just about every respect. Now, you say that in the long term you see the oversimplification of armor being very boring and a poor solution. Well, I think your main armor is more just your base set. Now, one thing that's worth mentioning is that the secondary stats will still be different. So unless you're like a min-maxer or something like that, you're probably fine to just roll with one set of armor. So I suppose, yeah, maybe there's less loot coming in overall, but anytime I've played a hybrid class, I have found it such a pain in the arse having to manage different sets and juggling them around in my bags and all that. I never found it to be a fun part of the game. I always found it to be more of a hurdle. Now, when you say about the role-dependent spec looting stuff, your secondary, your other items, your non-armor ones, like your cloak and your rings and that sort of thing, they will have different kinds of secondary stats. They could have bonus armor if you're prot, as an example. They could have, attack power for ret, loads of different things like that, and they have the secondaries and the tertiaries, and they can also have Warforged or sockets. So this secondary gear is, not secondary gear, what we're going to call it? This is non-armor, I suppose. The non-armor pieces of gear are the ones that are really going to let you customize what your character is going to be like in terms of stats. Now, is there really that much customization in a DPS spec? No, but in a tanking or healing spec there is. Some people might prefer more haste to more armor, some healers might prefer more or less spirit. So, yeah, I think there is still going to be there's still going to be lots of decisions in loot. Now, another thing that's going to keep this from getting boring is that there's the 10%, well, right now they're saying 10%, but it could change. There's a percentage chance of getting an extra bonus thing, like a socket, or a tertiary stat, or Warforged. That means the gear is always going to be useful, so even if there was only the one set of gear that you wanted, every time you go through this raid again and again, the nice thing about that is you are going to still have a chance of getting an upgrade. Now, also for the reason about removing LFR, not removing, meaning LFR is not needed for someone who's running normal, I actually think that's the way the game should be. Blizzard have been very clear in that they say LFR is not the best way to experience their raids, and it's there so that people who are not, maybe because of their time schedule, or their time frame or schedule, whatever, they cannot commit to a normal or a heroic or a mythic group. That's fine, but Blizzard have basically said it's like a tourism mode, because you can't really get the interesting and fun mechanics of fights in when there's no communication, like voice communication, proper sort of stuff. And that's fine. LFR doesn't need to be a thing. Just in case anyone doesn't know, I think what he means in this question is often you would run LFR to gear up your off-spec, and you probably won't have to do that anymore because the gear that you get from normal will, I suppose, be useful across 2 different specs. And I just think that that just removes an annoying hurdle that was never fun and never really added any gameplay, and it was forcing people to go into LFR when they didn't particularly want to, and all that does is contribute to people burning out of the game. So yeah, I don't think it'll be a problem, and I think that the armor being a little bit more simplified is good, provided that the off-armor pieces still allow for the interesting customization and a kind of a cool loot hunt. So I think, overall, fantastic system, very happy with it, and hopefully it will all end up nice. The next question is, do you think that Warlords of Draenor is filler before Blizzard continue the storyline, or do you think this really fits in after Mists of Pandaria? Personally, I'd love to see the old orcs, as we have only heard of them in lore, and we now get to fight or co-op with them, but at the same time, it feels like a filler. Well, this is a hard one. Does it? Okay, you could really say anything is a filler, I suppose. It depends on the storyline that you are interested in. This is an expansion that does not need to happen, and this is lore that they have created, I suppose. Now, does that mean it's filler? Well, what's the definition of filler? To me, the definition of filler is putting out subpar stuff to buy time for the greater things to come. Now, I don't believe that's what this expansion is. I think it's adding in great systems. I think that overall the raid changes, apart from perhaps Mythic, which will be a bit of a shake-up for the first 1 or 2 tiers. But I think that overall it's adding a lot of great systems. I think garrisons are fantastic. Personally, from a story perspective, I think I agree with you. I really want to see these old orcs. And really, a game is about cool shit, right? And I think that this is going to be cool, and it's going to be fun, so no, I don't think it's a filler expansion. If anything, I think Mists of Pandaria was a more filler expansion. You could nearly look at every expansion being kind of filler-ish. It's just, oh hey, random thing's happening, let's go fix that. And that's what this is. But the only thing is that story-wise, first of all, you could say this isn't filler because it is continuing directly on from the events of Mists of Pandaria via Garrosh, and also the next expansion will continue directly on from this. So perhaps it's one of the, from an overarching lore standpoint, it's one of the less interesting acts of an overall story, but I still wouldn't classify it as filler. I think it's going to be a really fun expansion, and we are going to get great lore. They did say that there's some malevolent force behind all of the things that are going on. I think that whatever this force is, it's probably tied to the Burning Legion, and that could be very cool. It could, of course, also be N'Zoth. I could see the expansion flow probably, it's either going to be Warlords of Draenor, then N'Zoth, then the Burning Legion invasion, or Warlords of Draenor, Burning Legion invasion, then N'Zoth. What really, I suppose there's really 2 guys here. Is N'Zoth the guy who is causing all this stuff to go on with Garrosh, going back in time, or is that the Whispers of N'Zoth kind of pushing different characters in different directions, or is Kil'jaeden somehow behind stuff like this? Kil'jaeden is the one guy in the Legion who sort of would be behind this, because he is Kil'jaeden the Deceiver. He is the very tricksy guy, he prefers to do things subtly. So yeah, overall I think there's going to be cool lore, and I don't think it's filler. Anyway, that's it for today's Warcraft Daily. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. If you have anything to say about the episode, the lore, any stuff you want to say about Ghostcrawler, leave that in the comments. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.